Trust me, folks, I'm a professional. My name is Darren DeLuca, and I've been involved in recruiting and talent acquisition for nearly 2 decades. I've worked for some of the best companies in the world. I've seen a lot. Actually, I've seen it all. Now, I'm coming to YouTube to bring you the straight scoop on everything related to the world of work. So if you're a job seeker, a hiring manager, a recruiter, or just someone with a question about jobs and job searching, this is the place for you. I am Darren DeLuca, the original, accept no imitations, and this is The Ramblin' Recruiter. Hey folks, Darren DeLuca here, and this is The Ramblin' Recruiter. Thank you for joining us. You made it, and today we have an awesome episode planned for you. We're going to be talking about how to ace an interview. Now, originally I had planned this to be one long video covering all formats of interviews: in person, telephone, video, and pre-recorded video. The video became a little bit long, a little bit cumbersome, and I've decided to break it up into a 3-part series. So today we'll be focusing on in-person, face-to-face interviews and the tips and tricks and strategies that you need to be successful and come out on top every time. So stick around, it's going to be a good one. Before we jump into interview strategies, please go ahead and smash that like button, and please share this video with your friends and coworkers. Most of my network is on LinkedIn, and I always appreciate when my content gets shared on LinkedIn, so thanks in advance for that. Comment below with the questions you want to see answered and what topics you'd like to see covered in future videos. Today's video is sponsored by Audible.com. If you're anything like me, you love reading, you just don't have a heck of a lot of free time to do it in, Audible is the solution. I've got it, I love it. I listen to audiobooks on my commute in the morning, on my commute home in the evening, when I'm at the gym. You know, whatever it is that you're into, fiction, nonfiction, inspirational, motivational, they've got it. They're giving away a 1-month free trial that includes a free audiobook. There is no obligation to buy anything further. You can cancel it at any time. I put a link to the 1-month free trial below in the description. Definitely check it out. So I mentioned earlier that there's 4 major formats for interviews: phone, live video, pre-recorded video, and face-to-face. By and large, the purpose of phone and video interviewing is to cull the candidate pool down, to take a broader pool of applicants and bring that down to a smaller pool of candidates who are highly vetted and highly qualified. The idea for both the recruiters and the hiring managers is to make sure that the candidates that are coming in for face-to-face interviews are the best qualified and the most likely to be a good fit with the culture of the company, with the personalities of the individual group or department, and who are most likely to be aligned to the compensation structure of the position. So if the phone or the video interviews are the preseason games, the live face-to-face interview is the big show. It's the Super Bowl, it's the World Series. Preparation for a live interview needs to start days in advance. Don't think you're going to just roll in the day of with no preparation and wing it. It will not go well. There's an old saying: how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Interviewing is no different. You need to spend a considerable amount of time researching. If you expect your answers to sound concise, you need to spend a considerable amount of time rehearsing them. Well thought out, relatable, believable answers take time and preparation. So let's talk about the preparation from a logistical standpoint, because if you're in job hunt mode, there's definitely some things that you need to have ready at a moment's notice. So let's talk about the things you need to have ready to go at a moment's notice when you're in job hunt mode. First of all, your interview outfit. Whatever that's going to be, we'll talk about that in a minute. Copies of your resume, print it out, ideally on nice paper, but don't laminate them and don't put them on cardstock. A nice notebook, either a leather-bound portfolio or some other type of nice notebook, and a decent-looking pen. If you're in a sales role, have your brag book ready to go. If you're in a creative role, have your portfolio ready to go. If you're in tech, have examples of your previous code ready to go. You see where I'm going with this, right? We don't always get several days' notice when an interview is being scheduled. It's not at all unusual to get a call 3 o'clock this afternoon that the company wants to meet you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. You've got to be ready for that. Now, let's talk about dressing for an interview. Men, you need a suit. It needs to be cleaned and pressed and ready to go. If you're in job hunt mode, get it dry cleaned, keep the plastic on it, keep it in your closet, and keep it ready to go. Although fashion changes, a conservative navy blue, black, or gray suit, white shirt, and a dark tie never go out of style. These options will never be wrong, unless you're interviewing at a startup or certain tech companies, or you've been advised not to wear a suit. You deviate from this at your own peril. The one thing you don't want to be memorable for is for being underdressed. Now, personally, I'm no expert on women's fashion. I'll just leave it at this. The female equivalent to the male dark suit, white shirt, and conservative tie is appropriate. I've seen women wear suits. I've seen women wear dresses. The one thing I would say is if you're wearing a skirt, make sure it's not too short. I'm not an expert on skirt lengths. I don't know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, but I do know that as a candidate, you'd want to be memorable for more than your legs. Ladies, don't go overboard on the jewelry. Makeup should be professional looking and understated. Don't go overboard on perfume. Men, that applies to you as well. If you smell like you took a bath in Drakkar Noir, you're wrong. You're doing it all wrong. If you have tattoos and piercings, it's best to keep those covered as much as possible. Look, I know it's 2019, right? People have tattoos, people have piercings. I myself have 2 tattoos. What I will tell you is that in 15 years of recruiting, there have been a number of times where visible tattoos have come up during the interview debrief and they've never been thought of positively. It's never come up in a positive way. And last but not least, and I think this is extremely important, if you smoke, number one, you should quit because it's killing you and it's really expensive. But no, seriously, if you smoke, do not smoke in your interview outfit. You might think you have plenty of time to air out. To you, it doesn't smell like cigarette smoke. A non-smoker will pick up on that in a heartbeat. And in the confines of an interview room or a conference room, that smell can really be overpowering. I know it's difficult. I am a former smoker myself, and I know interviews are stressful. You're nervous. It's exactly the time that you'd want to be smoking. Resist the temptation. If you absolutely must, make sure you take your jacket off and you have plenty of time to air out. You eat a breath mint and you wash your hands. Like I was saying earlier, it is absolutely imperative that you put in the time to do the research and rehearse answers to your questions. Ideally, you would do this with somebody at home who can ask you questions and you would answer them and they can give you some feedback. If you don't have anybody at home to help you with that, presumably you do own a mirror, so spend the time, practice in the mirror, ask and answer questions. You don't practice until you get it right. You practice until you don't get it wrong at all anymore. If you're looking for a great resource that will help you prepare for the types of questions you might encounter on any given interview, there's a book, Winning Answers to 500 Interview Questions by Lavi Margolin. I put a link to it below in the description. This is $10 really well spent. If you're preparing for an interview, this will be enormously helpful to you. So at a minimum, 2 days out, you should be researching the company online. This would include researching their corporate website, their financial filings if they're a public company. If you want to know how to find a company's public financial filings, just enter their name into Google and put 10K afterward. That'll bring up some of their SEC filings. You should check any recent financial news to see if there's been any movement in the stock price recently, big runs up or big runs down. Definitely important to know. The day of the interview, you want to check their stock price. If you have, time to do so. If you're interviewing before the market opens, obviously that won't work. But at least have a general idea what the range that it trades in is. Also, you'll be looking for any major news on acquisitions, divestitures, mergers, layoffs, anything like that you might be able to find. Glassdoor and Indeed.com both offer employees the opportunity to rate their current employer. on a variety of topics, the work-life balance, the compensation, the benefits, the CEO. This is a great resource. Now, take some of these reviews with a grain of salt. Typically, the squeaky wheels are the ones who go to Glassdoor or to Indeed to rate their company because they're unhappy with something. But if you read a number of positive reviews and some less than positive reviews, you'll get a good sense of what the balance between the two really is. Don't put too much stock in, the terribly negative reviews, and don't put too much stock in the hugely positive reviews. But they're a good place to get at least some understanding of what the culture is going to be like. No one is going to expect you to know everything about a company, and recruiters and hiring managers alike will definitely appreciate seeing that you took the time to do your research. It reflects well on you. It shows that you're well prepared. It shows that you care. If you've been provided a schedule, take the time to research the individuals you're going to be interviewing with on LinkedIn. Look at their LinkedIn profiles. Look at their career trajectories. It will help you come up with questions that you want to ask them. And most importantly, it will help you find common connections between the two of you. Now, here's a gold nugget for you. If you have people in your network who are connections in common with the interviewers, you will absolutely want to reach out to those people. Ask them for intel on the interviewer's personality. What do they look for in candidates? And if you know the common connection well, it is not out of bounds whatsoever to ask them to reach out to the interviewer on your behalf. That conversation might go a little something like this. Hey John, it's Darren. I'm interviewing at XYZ Corp tomorrow. I see that you used to work with Jane Smith. She's the person I'm interviewing with. How is she? What is she like in person? Oh yeah, she's great. You're gonna love her. She's super attentive to detail, loves to develop her people. I think she's a great manager. That's awesome. Hey, I really appreciate that intel. Do you think you could maybe give her a call on my behalf just to put in the good word? Oh yeah, sure, of course I can do that. These kinds of things happen every day, and you should take advantage of every possible edge you can give yourself. If the company is local, I suggest doing a dry run the night before or the evening before. The worst feeling in the world is when you know you are going to be late for an interview because you got lost. All right, GPS makes it easier, but it's not always right. Sometimes they send you on wild goose chases. Take the time the evening before, do the drive, iron out any of the kinks, and know that however long it took you, during off hours, it's likely to take you longer during rush hour. This brings me to my next point. Don't be late. I repeat, do not be late. Once again, in case I wasn't clear the first two times, do not be late. Try to arrive to your interview 15 minutes early. No earlier and no later. If you arrive more than 15 minutes earlier, you can mess up people's schedules. If you're not there at least 15 minutes early and you have any kind of issue, you get lost, you take a wrong turn, you get pulled over by the police on your way there, you are going to be late. Things happen, right? Things happen every day. But you need to ensure that you leave enough time to take into consideration any other factors that may happen and still be there on time. Showing up late to an interview is the kiss of death. I've been doing this 15 years. I've probably interviewed 7,000 candidates in that period of time, and I can't think of one who got hired after being late to an interview. It is the slap in the face to the people who are interviewing you. It shows that you are not properly prepared. Don't be late. Be nice and kind and respectful to the receptionist or whoever greets you when you first come in the door. Receptionists and administrative assistants are very often asked for their opinions and impressions on candidates. If you're a jerk, that is going to get back to the hiring manager. I don't care if the receptionist makes you wait. I don't care if they're mean and nasty to you. I don't care if it's 110 degrees out and they don't offer you a drink of water or anything like that. Be nice and smile. When you arrive, turn off your phone. Do not put it on silent. Do not put it on vibrate. A phone buzzing in your pocket is as distracting as a phone dinging, beeping, or ringing in an interview. Again, these are the types of things that fall under attention to detail. Do not let it happen to you. It's too easy to just turn it off and not have to worry about it. If you need to know the time, invest in a watch, okay? You can get one cheap anywhere. And do not look at your phone at all unless you are on a break. When you're greeted by your first interviewer, stand up and shake their hand. Shake hands firmly, but don't crush their hand either. Now, if you happen to be a man and you are being interviewed by a woman, do not offer a weak handshake because you're afraid you're going to hurt her or crush her hand or something. Make it firm, okay? Treat her as you would any other man that you meet. Shake hands firmly. Look the interviewer in the eye when you shake their hand and say their name. So if the interviewer's name is Sally, say, "Sally, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you for having me here today." Repeat that process for every person that you meet. Repeat their name. Thank them for their time and for inviting you into the office. Under no circumstances, unless you are disabled, should you ever shake hands sitting down. I find that to be highly unprofessional. Now, as far as taking notes during interviews go, I think it's perfectly acceptable to have a nice notepad and a pen. We talked about that as the things you need to have prepped and ready to go. But taking nonstop copious notes during an interview is distracting. It's disrespectful. It detracts from eye contact. So definitely have your notebook handy. And if the interviewers that you're meeting with don't have a business card, ask them for their name. Ask them how to spell it. Write that down. Maybe jot down 1 or 2 notes on any really key important topics that come out during the interview. But don't sit there scribbling in a notebook the whole time. It almost makes you look spastic. So a minute ago, I was talking about eye contact, and I assure you this is extremely important. You need to be able to look your interviewers in the eye. A person who can't look you in the eye, it's like a sign that they're not being honest or that they're hiding something. This doesn't mean that you want to stare them down and make them feel really uncomfortable. And if somebody was talking to you like this for a long period of time, you'd probably get a little bit freaked out. So a good rule of thumb to follow is look them in the eyes, look at their nose, look at their forehead, look at their lips, then briefly look away. Do your best to mirror the body language and the gestures and things that the interviewer is showing you. So, for example, if they're sitting back in their chair, you probably want to sit back in your chair as well. If they're leaning into you, that's a great sign. That means they're really interested in what you have to say. You want to lean in as well. When they're speaking to you, when they're telling you about their job or their responsibilities, or they're giving you, an anecdote about the company, you definitely want to be leaning in. You want to give that perception that even if what they're saying is extremely boring, that you are very interested in hearing about it. When you get near the end of your time with each individual interviewer, they're almost certainly going to ask you if you have any questions for them. It's critically important that you do have questions for them and that you ask them questions. Now, if it's been a good interview, if it's been a good two-way dialogue, that means that a number of the questions you've had for them likely may have already been answered. That's okay. That's actually a good sign. One side or the other should not be doing all the talking during an interview. But if you feel like you're stumped or you already asked everything that you wanted to know, I put in the description below a list of, just a couple of really good general interview questions. They'll work in almost any circumstance. It is absolutely okay to have these written down in your notebook, and if you have to reference them because you're stumped, you can do that. At the conclusion of each individual interviewer's time, make sure, again, you stand up, you shake their hand, you thank them for their time. You're going to repeat the same process you did when you met them. If you haven't already ask them for a business card. If they do not have a business card, ask them to share their email address, write it down in your notebook. Ask the person for the proper spelling of their name if you are not certain of how to spell their name. The one thing that you don't want to run into is you're trying to send somebody a thank you note via email and they keep bouncing back because you're spelling their last name wrong. On your way out of the building, thank the receptionist or whoever it was that greeted you. It could be security, it could be a receptionist, it could be an admin assistant. Thank them for their time. Tell them it was really nice being here and that you appreciate it. Again, they're going to be asked, what were your impressions of that person? You want them to be left with a sense that you are very well mannered and that you are a genuine person who is appreciative of the opportunity to interview. Many companies now are using standardized interview guides. These provide the hiring manager a list of questions they can choose from to better understand your experiences in a number of different areas. And these will typically revolve around the company's values or mission statement. So these are things that you should have been able to come up with during your research of the company on their corporate website. So if you put two and two together here, you may be able to predict some of the questions that you're going to get asked throughout the interview. Most companies will use a behavioral-based interview, and they'll ask behavioral-based questions. Now, behavioral interviewing is a whole other topic unto itself. In fact, I will definitely make another video on behavioral interviewing. But for today's purposes, we'll look at it at a very basic level. Behavioral questions are the ones that start off with, tell me about a time when, ... insert the blank there. Like I said, behavioral interviewing is a whole other topic, but I will say this much. These types of questions are designed to understand what your specific actions and behaviors were in a given situation. Let me stress that. Specific, your specific actions. Therefore, your answers should be I statements, not we statements, okay? This is not the time to give the team credit for everything. This is the time to take the credit yourself. Don't take credit for work you didn't do, don't lie, but don't reference everything in terms of a team either. Definitely don't talk hypothetically. Don't say, I would have done this, or this is what I think I would do. Your statements should be I statements, I did. Now, the answers to behavioral interview questions should come in a specific format, and that's called the STAR format. STAR is an acronym. It means situation, task, action, results. It's very important that you wrap the whole thing up at the end with the results. So, the situation, right? What was the situation? What was going on? Tasks. What tasks were assigned to you? Actions. What actions did you take? What actions did you specifically take? And what were the results? So, to provide a really basic example, if the question was, tell me about a time when you've dealt with a difficult coworker, my answer, not your answer, but my answer might sound something like this. So I can recall one example. I was working with my HR business partner to put together a compensation offer for a candidate we were looking to hire. The HR business partner, he was notoriously difficult to work with at offer time. He only considered internal equity. He didn't look at each candidate as an individual or, a specific circumstance, or really take too much of their skills, knowledge, and experience into consideration. So it was very difficult to get him outside of his comfort zone, to push him to move the compensation envelope a little bit higher. So as the talent acquisition partner, my role was to make a compensation recommendation based on the candidate's skills, knowledge, experience, and the internal equity of the group, and keeping the candidate's minimum expectations in mind. I realized that while the candidate's minimum expectations were within the scope of the position, it was within the range, they were higher than the internal equity, and I knew this would not sit well with the HR business partner. So I spent some extra time with both the candidate and the hiring manager to build a case as to why this candidate's skills, knowledge, and experience warranted a higher salary. And I also did some market research for salaries, and what I discovered is that we were paying a little bit below the market. I presented this info to the HR business partner, and he agreed that we should up our offer a little bit and resolve any inequities this caused with the existing team throughout the course of the normal compensation planning cycle. Ultimately, we were able to put together an offer for the candidate, and I extended it to the candidate. They accepted. So I'm going to make a suggestion to you right now. Rewind the video and rewatch what I just said. That was solid gold that I just gave you right there. That was more or less a perfect example of a strong behavioral-based interview question answer. It's a question that you may very well hear on your next interview because it's a very common question. A lot of people have asked me over the years, how do you come up with these examples on the fly? I'm nervous when I'm interviewing, I'm sitting, there's people watching me, and I just can't think on the spot like that. And that's normal. That's normal human nature. It becomes very difficult to think clearly when you are stressed out in flight or fight mode. So my recommendation is this: think back over your career, or if you're just graduating school, over your academic experiences, or if you're just getting out of the military, over your military experiences. Think back and ask yourself, what are the achievements that I'm most proud of? What are my capstone accomplishments? What would I want somebody to know about me? And think of those examples and rehearse them over and over and over again until you have the story down pat and you can fire it off at any given time. This way, when you get asked a behavioral-based interview question, you can adapt that story, that accomplishment, that achievement to fit whatever the question is asking you. Whether it's about a difficult coworker, or a time that you took initiative, or sometime you went above and beyond, you'll be able to answer those questions if you have your examples of your best achievements down pat. I've seen people out there try to memorize interview guides, get a hold of an interview guide for online and try to memorize it. It's a waste of time. Focus on your examples, the rest will fall into place. Thank you notes are definitely a must. It is critically important that you use every opportunity that you can to stand out from the other candidates. And thank you notes are a great way to do that. I advise you send them via email unless you can definitely 100% positively meet two conditions. One, you have perfect handwriting, and two, that you'd be able to send out a handwritten note the same day you interviewed so that it would get there within 24 to 48 hours. If you can't absolutely guarantee those two things, don't send a handwritten note. Email them instead. Email is perfectly acceptable. So if you've been successful on your interview, you're either going to get invited back for a second or final round, or you'll be receiving a job offer. If you're invited back for a second round, it's likely going to be with a more senior person, a department head or a director, vice president. Make sure you put even more effort into preparing for that interview. Spend the time, understand that person's career, understand who your common connections are, think hard about the questions you'd want to ask that person. If you're receiving an offer, now it's time for some negotiation, and negotiation will be another video for another day. You'll definitely want to tune into that one. Well, that brings us to the end of this video on how to ace an interview, part 1, face-to-face interviews. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Please hit the like button if this was helpful for you. If this was helpful for you and you think it might be helpful for somebody else please share it with them. Again, I really appreciate it when people share my videos on LinkedIn. That's a great compliment for me. And if you've got questions or comments, or you want to see different topics in the future, please leave a comment below, and I'll try to answer those questions in the next go-around. If you don't want to miss any of this wonderful gold content that's coming out here, please subscribe. You'll get notified when new videos come out. Once again, thanks for watching. Please consider claiming your 1-month free trial at audible.com. The link is in the description below. Have a great rest of your day, and wherever you go, there you are. I'm Darren DeLuca, and this is the Ramblin' Recruiter. See ya.